Hi everyone, great to have so many of you on the call today. Thanks for taking out a bit of time over your lunch break to join one of our how-to webinars. So today we're focusing on how to develop your consultancy skills and helping you think through what does it mean to go from an admin to a consultant. What are the things I need to think about to manage and support an implementation of a CRM system from start to finish, either for a team or for an organization. And I quite quickly realized, there was a difference between being an admin and a consultant early on in my sort of Salesforce career, really. So for the first couple of years, I was an admin on my own org. It was my own organization. I could play with the system and build it out as I want. I kind of knew what I needed, and I could really sort of, play with it as much as I wanted to and learn everything, which was amazing. But when you're starting to go out and do it for an employer or a client, you're like, okay, so how do I manage all of this effectively? And professionally, particularly when you've not got a tech background. I think that was probably my little bit of my gremlin on my shoulder. I was like, oh, well, I haven't done a tech degree. I don't know about implementing IT systems really, and I think that's what drove me to kind of do all of the training courses that I did. So having done the admin course, I then did a Salesforce consultancy course, which was a 5-day course, which was amazing. And it looked at some of the sales cloud, service cloud features, but it taught me about consultancy skills. And unfortunately, they don't run that anymore, which is a shame because I think it was a great course. But there was other layers of skill sets that I realized I needed as well on top of that, which was around sort of business analysis, change management, project management, all of these different skill sets that go alongside your Salesforce certifications. The Salesforce certs are great in helping you understand the product and what the product can do. But it's really about how do you manage and support a whole implementation. There's a whole raft of other skill sets, really. And that's why I want to share some of these skills with you today. So you're going to get a lot of value from this half an hour. We're going to be going through change management specifically today and looking at some of the areas of change management that hopefully will help you in your roles where you are now. But also I'm really excited to share with you that we are launching a consultancy course for our Supermums. So anybody that wants to develop consultancy courses, consultancy skills can take our online course. It's going to be launched in January. It's going to be an online course with group coaching that I'll be running. And I'm putting this together because I'm doing this with my own team Economic Change, is that I bring on people within the team who I'm training up to be consultants. And we're quite lucky at Economic Change in that I do invest obviously in their CPD, that I put them on the sort of relevant courses, where I can. But as an individual yourself, that's an £8,000 investment at least. I mean, I've certainly invested that much and more in training and qualifications around all these consultancy related skills. So our course is obviously a much cheaper price point than that and covers off some of what I feel is the essential basics every day. But I'll put about why in context and why it's important. So hopefully some of these skills you've got already. Today will be a bit of a sense check for you to go, actually, do I know what I'm doing here already? Am I confident in this, or am I not confident in these areas? And hopefully you'll go away with the day with a sense of, okay, these are the areas that I need to develop more, which you might do by yourselves, which is great, or you might do with us. Whatever it is, we want to empower you to understand what is relevant and useful whilst being a consultant and what's not. So we're just going to stand back a bit and say, why is this important? Why are these skills here? So my question would be, have you ever worked somewhere where you have a CRM, but it was never used? That's always, quite a common situation. Now, why wasn't it used? Well, there's different reasons quite often why a technology project will go wrong. Some of the biggest reasons why it will go wrong is down to employee resistance. So here you've got some stats. So McKinsey estimates that 70% of change programs fail to achieve their goals in large part due to employee resistance. Now, what causes employee resistance? Well, it's handling the whole process in the wrong way around change management, around business analysis, around project management. It's about the people skills and about getting everybody on board and excited, but it's also about designing a system to meet their needs. And so it's really about how do you engage employees along the way. Like, if you went out there tomorrow and started a project, you'd want to get employees bought in and have a high adoption rate, right? That's what we're all aiming for. And so a lot of the research highlights that these are the key project success factors. You know, a Salesforce will only be as good as the implementation process. Salesforce will not be seen as a good product because it wasn't implemented properly for a client. Salesforce in its own right is obviously a great product. It's why we all love it and like it, and we can like it. But if it doesn't work for the users and exec sponsors aren't bought into it, then it's not going to be a great product because nobody will use it. It might not do what they want. You know, nobody's clear on when to use it or why to use it. And that's when projects can fall down. So your key project success factors need to be really concentrate on executive sponsorship. So that's one of the reasons why projects fail, is because executive sponsors aren't bought into the CRM solution and understand their role they need to play in a CRM project. Business analysis is critical because that's all about understanding what users need and designing a solution to meet their need. Change management is the whole journey that you go through to get everybody excited. So that's about getting the exec sponsors excited, about getting the user excited, and about communicating to them what they need to do, when it's going to happen, how they're going to have to use the system. It's really a communication strategy that communicates the right things at the right time to the right people to get everybody on board with this process so everybody's adopted. Then you've got project management, which is making sure that everything falls at the right time so people can engage with the solution. So it's not going to be implemented at the busiest time of the year when everybody has a zero dot time to focus on this. So project management is about making sure that the whole CRM implementation is happening around when people are available, when they've got capacity, you know, when you need things back from people, and that it's all going to happen within a timely manner that everybody's agreed to. And then finally, with all of that involved, you want the right solution. Now, Salesforce is a product, right? But you can bend and mold it, customize it, tailor it, change its, you know, names to kind of mold itself to that organization based on everything that they want. So that's what your project success factors look like. If you have poor consultancy skills, what will happen is you'll end up with low executive sponsorship, poor communication, low engagement, poor design, low benefits for the company, and that will result in low adoption. You know, this is like looking at the worst case scenario, and it's a ripple effect. It starts with executive sponsorship. If you've got them on board, that is the primary thing that you need to do, is get them really excited and on board with it, and telling everybody in the organization that this is coming, this is why it's important, and that this is now how you must operate as an organization. If you don't have that senior exec sponsor on board to kind of push everything through and get all the users focused and thinking this is a priority for us, we've got to listen, we've got to do something, we've got to react to it, that's where it starts. And then the rest will sort of, you know, you have to work on the rest of it, but all of it trickles through. But this is the worst case scenario. And this is where, when I've gone into customers, I see that this is the problem. And whenever I get brought into a customer, I've worked with over, you know, as an organization, we've worked with over 200 nonprofits now. But when we're going in where they've had a CRM system that's not worked, I guarantee it will be due to one of these issues. And quite often it might be the very top where they've got poor executive sponsorship. And that's the first thing that we have to change in any organization before you can do the rest of it. Because if you don't get that right, nothing else will work. So if we just stand back and look at, you know, the ideal consultancy process. So when we go into an organization, the first thing we'll do is we deliver something we call a scoping workshop. And in that scoping workshop, we focus on what is your business strategy for the next 3 years and what are your key performance indicators, i.e. your goals and targets for the organization. Because you need to understand where that business is heading, what they see as important, because anything that relies on that, you know, and helps them get there, they're going to more likely to buy into. So you need to start communicating that, okay, well, if we implement X, Y, Z, like Sales Cloud and Service Cloud, that is going to contribute to your performance KPIs here. Like if you invest, you know, 20 grand in this, that's going to help you achieve that uplift of 100K or £1 million or whatever it is over here, or reduce you in costs. So if you need to understand the business strategy and KPIs. So you can then all the way through your consultancy process keep going back to that, keep going back to why this is important to help your organization grow, address financial efficiencies or whatever it is. And that's part of the change management language. The second stage is then you go into design workshops, and that's where you map out everybody's processes and you do process maps. Now, we're one of the consultancies that do process maps. There are other consultancies that don't. So we think that it's best practice, and that helps us map out a whole process. In an ideal world, you'd be doing process mapping as is and as how will be using Salesforce. Quite often, if there isn't that budget, then you can't. But you want to draw out the processes as they will be using Salesforce. How are people going to work in their day-to-day jobs? And off the back of that process mapping and looking at each of the requirements that you're going to pull out in that process, you're going to then have a requirements document and be able to document everything in there. And it's very structured. Everything ties together really nicely. That's how you kind of want things to look. Every step of the process is a requirement. What does that mean? You can cost it out. You can communicate to the client, okay, and you can prioritize all these requirements and go, okay, this is what we understand the process. These are all the bits of the system that we need to change. These are the priorities you've communicated to us. This is what we're going to work on first. And that's when you start, designing and building out the technical solution. And then you're moving into evaluating the CRM system. So this is where you're getting users bought into it. You're training them. You're doing user testing and kind of getting it rolled out and getting it refined to how they need. And then you're moving into evaluation process and the return on investment they're getting. And quite often you might need to wait. Some outcomes you might get immediately. You might get some complete tangible benefits as a result of having the system in place. Other ones you might need to wait for 6 months or a year, for example, for them to really take fold. So this is the overall process. And this is kind of the process we went through on the consultancy course that I did, and really sort of enhanced with all the other training courses that I've done. So given that we've got half an hour today, I'm just going to give you a flavour of change management. And I did a week-long change management course, loads of amazing information in there. It was around a lot of theories, which was great, but I had to come away and go, what does that mean for a CRM project? Because it certainly wasn't tailored to a CRM project. It was just talking about change management, all the different theories. And I came back and wrote an 8-step guide to change management for a CRM project, because I need to take that learning and think, well, how am I going to apply this to my work and my role, and how will this help? So I created an 8-step guide that went through 4 key areas: analyze, plan, strategy, and change. And within each of these 4 areas, I put in place all the different theories and how they related. So the first sort of area where we talk about analyze is go, okay, why is this organization doing this project? What is the rationale for it? And what is their readiness to do this right now? They're the first 2 things that you need to assess. And this is where you're producing like the business case document. It's understanding the culture of the organization, looking at any challenges that might present, and really coming up with a set of key documentation at this point, which helps you kind of plan the rest of the project, but also forms the basis of the communication strategy. The second stage of my guide was around planning. And what we looked at here was the approach you were going to take. And what's fascinating about change management is, depending on the culture of the organization, you will adopt a slightly different approach to change. So there isn't a one size fits all. And so what we learned about on that course was, if the culture is quite top down, or if it's grassroots, you take this approach or this approach or this approach. So it's really important that you kind of understand the politics of the organization you're working with, if you like, and understand what type of culture they are, and discuss with them, how do we manage change given the type of organization you are. So what we teach, or what I teach my team, is, okay, well, based on the culture, this is the type of approach that you'd be wanting to take. And the second part of this is, what is the team that you need into place? Whose jobs, who has responsibility for doing X, Y, Z as part of this change management plan? And that is very clear. Again, where it goes wrong with exec sponsors is, you need to be really clear with an exec sponsor that this is all the 5, 6 things that they need to do as part of the job. Signing off the budget is just one thing, right? But they have a job role and responsibility as part of a CRM project, and they need to be aware of that, and need to, deliver on that all the way through. So we talk through job roles and responsibilities of different people, which isn't about having a whole new team necessarily. It's about different team members already in that organization playing different roles. And then the third area is around strategy. So this is about the leadership role. Again, it looks at the role of the leader in the organization and the approach that they should take to kind of spearheading this whole project. Again, really putting an emphasis on the exec sponsorship responsibilities. And then also, how do you facilitate change within the organization? And with facilitation, we look at who is everybody in the organization, and you start to categorize which are the champions are like really bought into it, who are going to be the blockers, for example, who are the sleepers, so they sort of sit there and are aware of it, but they're sort of not aware, and you need to keep engaging in different ways. So what you're doing is analysing the whole organisation and working out in which bucket everybody sits and how you need to tackle those different types of people. And then you're working out also what kind of learning support that they need along the way, because there's different learning styles for different people in that organisation. So if you deliver training in just one way, it's not going to stick. And then we've got the whole change process, which is about preparing them and embedding it. So again, it goes back to communication, what's happening when, and how do you embed it. And that's once the system's gone live, how are you supporting people to adopt it and addressing any barriers or issues that come over. So it's quite a comprehensive sort of content that we've got around all these areas. I'm just going to give you some of this content for free on this webinar, which is just kind of, it's not the in-depth theories and some of the aspects, but just to kind of give you, just build on what I've said now and just recap a little bit really. So 3 of the takeaways you can take for analyze. So analyze is about having a collective vision about what you want to achieve with this project. Number 1, it's about preparing the business case. What is the rationale? What is the practicalities? And what are the benefits for all involved? And the benefits should be smart benefits. They should be measurable, achievable, time-framed, realistic, and things that you can measure at the end of the project. Number 2 is elicit and prioritize and align to individual, team and organizational benefits. So whenever you're doing the design workshops, you want to be saying to people, if we do this way, it's going to benefit you in this way, and that might be you as in the organization, or it might be that person sat in the room with his head in his hands because he's got too much admin to do. So you really want to understand what people's pain points are in the room individually, and communicate to them how this is going to benefit them individually to kind of get them engaged and enthused. And the third point on here is to future-proof the design of the system. So on our scoping workshops, we always want to have ideally all the business departments in the room, not just the one department that says they're going to go ahead with Salesforce initially. We want to get everybody aware around, well, how can Salesforce benefit your whole organization long term? Which departments can take it on? What could it do for you as a holistic tool? Because we don't want to just put it in fundraising or sales. We want to put it in marketing, sales, delivery, customer service, everything, ideally. But what you need to do is gauge that appetite and make them aware, because a lot of people don't realize Salesforce can do all of these different things. Don't assume they know. The reality is quite often a system will be picked up, Salesforce has got sales in the title, so everybody thinks it's just for sales, or they just think it's for fundraising. Make sure they know that it is a bigger solution than that, and it can cross over everything, and sense check whether there's likely to be the appetite to be bigger. Second section is around planning, and this is what I've focused on for this, is all around team building aspect. So you want to build a team around you and make sure you've got team champions, people who are enthusiastic about this process. You shouldn't be the only one championing this within the organization you're working or serving. You need to have a team around you who are helping you and are champing at the bit to get this through, because they'll help echo this all the way through amongst their peers. Secondly, identify blockages. Find anybody in that organization that's going to be a pain point and is going to block this, and have one-to-one conversations with them and tackle the root cause. We talk about winners and losers quite often in this context, and inevitably you might get people that leave the organization because they're not up for this change and don't want it to happen. So you need to understand, try and unblock them, but work with your exec sponsor to address where these blockages are. The third is around ensuring there's leadership, sponsorship, and communication is strong, because you need to generate attention that this is coming. On the third pillar, we talk about strategy, and what I've pulled out here is a little bit around communication. So you need to enable two-way communication with people throughout this CRM process. Make it consistent and allow for response to feedback. So, one way is like, this is coming, we need you to do X, Y, Z, blah, 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 but you need to maintain two-way communication so they can feed back to you and you can ask. Otherwise, people will feel that they've not been listened to, not been heard. And again, that's a common complaint that we've got in organizations before. Say, this system wasn't built for us, nobody took my opinions on board, and then they're not going to be high adopters. The second point is to deliver training in different ways to different formats to make sure you lend yourself to different personality styles and learning styles. So again, just think about how you can do that. The third is look about communicating the changes that are coming in 3 different ways. It's very much similar to sales. So when you talk about selling something to people, because these are sales skills, you're having to, people see or hear a brand 3 times in order to buy. Like, that's like the general rule of thumb. It's the same with selling in a CRM system to your client group, whether that's your peer staff or whether that's a customer you're working with. They need to communicate this 3 times in different ways through like workshops or lunchtime groups or whatever it is, to let them know it's coming and what they need to do. It's not part of their day job normally. It's something else that's going to sit on their to-do list, which again, why it's important to kind of keep reiterating. And then the fourth area is around change and embedding the system. So here you've got 3 distinct points around, well, how do we embed a system? How do we make sure it's happening? So the first is celebrate success. Celebrate who is using it well and the benefits it's had for them via various different methods. The second is establish changes in working practices in a formal and informal way. So you might need to change job contracts with staff, because now Salesforce is part of their job role. They have to use it in a certain way. If they don't use it in a certain way, that might lead to disciplinary, obviously worst case scenario, but that's a formal way of making it it's part of their performance framework. The mantra that sticks with me when I did my Salesforce courses back in 2010, and I echo this to all of you to keep in your head, is if it isn't in Salesforce, it doesn't exist. As a manager, that's what you need to be saying to people. Is like, if you're reporting back to me on what you've achieved in terms of sales, in terms of fundraising, in terms of delivery, if it isn't Salesforce and I can't see it on a dashboard, then it doesn't exist in my mind. And that's where you need to get to with a performance management framework and everybody using Salesforce as their main system of record. It's not about that spreadsheet over there. We're not using spreadsheets anymore. It's got to be in the system. So that's a very formal way to embed it. So again, the exec sponsors need to enforce that and communicate that as a change. The informal way is just to tell everybody in a team meeting, everything needs to be done in this way now. And that's obviously communicating it again, but it's a little bit more informal. I mean, it's depends how it's said and who's delivering it, but you've got to keep echoing it and make sure that it is formalized, but it keeps communicated. Again, going back to that 3 times. The third is to maintain and champion a continually improvement process. And this is where having an internal administrator is really important long term, or a support contract is really important, because a system never stands still. It's never going to be finished. Believe me, our own system in economic change and Supermums is never finished. You're always thinking, what can we do to improve it? Okay, well, this isn't quite working, or we're we've identified that something's not being picked up, okay, we need to put in something there. You know, that's where, again, you want this ongoing two-way feedback. You want people to keep coming back to you with feedback around, you know, oh, this isn't quite working, or, you know, what you don't want is them frustrated at their desk saying, oh, this system isn't right for me, it's not working. And then they don't know how to tell you that something isn't right, or they're not giving the outlook. So we talk about a lot of different ways that you could champion continual improvement, manage that and structure it, but it's something that's really important. Now, if you embed a proper change management strategy, you embed good business analysis techniques, you embed good project management, and you embed obviously all the features and functionality that Salesforce can offer you, you know, what you want to have as part of a successful consultant is high executive sponsorship. That is foremost, I can't stress it enough, the most important thing you could ever have. And you have a clear strategy and plan with that exec sponsor about how they need to operate with you. They have a job spec for this project, basically. A project needs job specs, teams, roles and responsibilities, essentially important. It's not just your job, it's everybody else's. If you've got high executive sponsorship and they're clear on what their role is, there's going to be really good communication strategy. If you've got a really good communication strategy, which is a document in its own right and a strategy that needs to be put into place, you're going to have high engagement. If you've got high engagement and design and understanding about the benefits, you're going to get good design, because you're going to get people properly thinking about what they need from this system and giving that to you through the various elicitation techniques that you can do. If you've got really good design outcomes, then you're going to get high benefits from the system and you're going to fundamentally get good adoption. So all of this is really important to think through and have a clear strategy and an element through it. So I'm hoping that's given you some really good, useful tips that you can just take away and start using now and to think about. Just to talk to you about our consultancy course, which will start on the 12th of January, which is a Thursday, is we're doing an 8-week program with an optional of work placement. So if you're not somewhere where you're working now, where you can't deploy these skills, we can put you in paid work placements. That's what we want to try and do through our recruitment arm. And the training itself will be online training. So I'm going to be delivering eight hours a week that you can listen to of project management, business analysis, change management, sales cloud and service cloud, and a bit of a consultancy overview session covering everything that we do on our consultancy, like scoping workshop, for example. And all of that will be available to listen to. And each week you'll have a specific topic. And then what we want the training participants to do is to bring the questions they've got, upload their homework, and come to a group coaching call every Thursday with what they've found out, any questions they've got, any situations they've got, perhaps where they're working at the moment that relate to that topic, and we can talk through things. And so really it's a group coaching content around that training. We'll also look to give you one-to-one mentors if you want one, who can provide additional support for you along the way. And as mentioned, we'll put you in work placements. And what we're going to secure for this specifically is like quick start projects, which are, so a small business will be implementing Sales Cloud or Service Cloud. And what we'll do is give you also the scripted questions to ask. So if you're implementing Service Cloud, we give you all the scripted questions that you need to ask and in what order to kind of build out a solution for them. The same with Sales Cloud. And that would be, for example, like maybe a 4-week project where you'll take them from A to B and get them set up. And this course has been sponsored by Dyson. So we're really lucky that they've helped sort of fund all the content to be built. And yeah, so we want to help you put in place all these consultancy skills. If you're already working, you can take these skills out and have it in your own place. Obviously, you don't need to do an additional work placement. It's why we've left this as an optional work placement, which is different to like the admin courses run before, where that's always part and parcel. So if you want to sign up, just let me know. We're taking payment plans before Christmas. So if you want to kind of get on board with it, more than happy to kind of, you know, provide additional support. So hopefully that's been a really useful, you know, some takeaways for you today. I'd love, if you've got any questions, please do ask them in the chat box. We've got a few minutes left. Hopefully that's, as I say, sort of added value content, you know, because we've just seen some, you know, it's a real shame when people haven't got a system that people are bought into. And, you know, a lot of clients or potential clients, obviously not when we've been working with them, all being well, is you know, they're like, oh, we've got Salesforce, but it's not really doing what we need it to do, or you know, it's been a bad implementation. And what we want to do is avoid that. We want to avoid all the situations where Salesforce implementations go wrong by making sure that everybody's equipped with the range of skills that they need, that they can take into an organization and help them manage a CRM project confidently and professionally. And that you feel confident. And that, for me, that was really important in my own role, is that I needed to, you know, feel confident that I was delivering things at a professional standard. I knew what I was doing. So to just answer one of the questions, so somebody said, where will the job placements take place? So all the work we try and do might be the contracts we're getting. Quite often, the work we give you might be virtual, but there might be small businesses that have projects that may be, you know, be based across the UK. So we'd look to, because it's run through the recruitment arm, we'll get job opportunities in where contractors can go, and obviously depending on where the, you know, what the positioning is, it could be virtual, or it could be on site, or flexible, depending on, you know, what the options are. For implementation projects where you're doing like a quick start setup, which is like a 4-week project, a lot of that can be done virtually. Obviously, it's always nice to kind of go in and see a client sometimes, particularly when you're doing the scoping workshop and design. So typically at economic change, we go into a client at the beginning for a full day and at the end for a full day. The rest of it is all done virtually. The roles that we're delivering, and for these, sorry, just asked somebody's asked about virtual roles can be taken up even if you're not living in the UK. Absolutely, this course is international. Like, anybody can take it up wherever they are. All I'd be conscious of is, obviously, if we're getting contracts in, we've got to be conscious of time zones and whether that matches you. So we are going to be getting small business clients in the US and from EMEA as well. So it would just be about matching you with the roles that fit where you need. And again, if they can be delivered virtually, they can be. So what we want to be able to say is, obviously, if you're investing in this course, it means that, you know, yes, you pay for the course, but 2, we're going to help you get your first consultancy placements straight off the back of it, and give you a very structured surround, you know, package of questions, a BA questionnaire, basically, to help you manage all of that. And so you're going to get hopefully paid work straight away. Now, you're going to have to go through interview process with that client, because obviously they're not going to say, oh yes, I'll work with them, whoever you get given. You know, you're going to have to pitch the interview. So our recruitment team will help you do that, make sure that we support you to hopefully get your foot in the door. The whole purpose of this for me was to help people progress up that ladder. And if we can give you a few quick start contracts, and then you're in a better position to secure that full-time role, then that's a great, you know, getting the steps on the ladder. Really, that's really what we wanted to achieve with this course, is just help people take those next steps up the career ladder through giving you job placements, or helping you in the roles where you are now, where you're more of the sole administrator and having to roll this out. You know, if you're a qualified admin, you're going into a job and you're already working on an existing system that's already there, then it's not a big issue. But if you're going into an organization, a job where you're having to roll out and plan a whole CRM system for a team or organization, that's a pretty big step up from just doing an admin cert. That's a huge responsibility. And I think that's where all these skills really come into play, to kind of give you the confidence and support and structure to make sure that you're equipped to do that, without having to fork out 8 or 9 grand on all the different courses that I did originally. So I'd love to chat to you more. Let me know if you enjoyed the webinar, if that was useful for you. Hopefully, as I say, you can take it back to where you are now, and learn from that. But it'd be great to hear from you. If you'd love to take up the course, drop me an email, and we can have a further chat about it. And yeah, hopefully that was great. So that's our half-hour slot. I hope you have a brilliant rest of the day. I'll speak to you all again soon. We've got our next webinar on Monday, which is all about raising your profile in the sector. I'm really keen to help women in the sector raise their profile, because we need to shout out more about mums in tech. So all the different ways that you can do that, that'll be tackled on Monday. All right, everyone, have a great weekend. Speak to you soon. Bye.